Hey everyone, RogueGold here, welcome back to the Division 2. It has been a very busy news day and news week, really. Just earlier this morning, the developers of the game hosted a stream in which they revealed the Battle for Brooklyn DLC along with a lot of other news and details about next season. I will link that down in the description in case you missed that and you want to see all that news. In this video, we're going to be diving into the patch notes for the Year 6 Season 3 PTS. This is expanding upon the information we learned in that prior video that I just mentioned, but this is also noteworthy because this PTS begins tomorrow on Friday, January 31st. So before that unlocks and we can all go in and test this for ourselves, we're going to go over the information and see what we need to know. I will be streaming this PTS right here on the channel tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern. And yeah, we're going to have lots of coverage of this throughout the weekend and next week. There's a lot to go over. So strap in, and if you like news and updates on the Division 2 like this and you want to stay in the loop for everything moving forward, then I hope you will consider clicking that subscribe button because I got a lot coming your way in the lead up to next season. But without further ado, let's go. Alright, so here we are on Trello with the Year 6 Season 3 patch notes. I will link these down in the description in case you want to go and check them out for yourself. As always, this PTS is only going to be available on PC. You can download it on Ubisoft Connect so long as you own the Division 2 on the platform. Here you have the sizes for the download. The start date, again, is going to be tomorrow on the 31st. This time, because there is only one phase, it is going to be running all the way until Wednesday of next week instead of Monday. So those are the following times. But let's get straight to it as we got a good amount to go over. So they break down the new modifier for this season. That's right. As we've talked about many times, seasonal modifiers are going to be swapping out every new season that we get from here on out for the game. This time around, it is going to be called Rogue Momentum, and it is all about skill, bending the rules, using dirty tactics, and engaging in high-risk, high-reward combat. This season, we encourage you to be more hostile and use every trick in your arsenal to unlock powerful combat bonuses. Pretty sick premise, I will say. Again, we covered a lot of this in the stream recap earlier, but let's kind of go over the TLDR here. Every time you kill an enemy, whether it be with a weapon, a skill, whatever, you're going to get stacks of momentum. There's going to be a bar next to your HUD that fills up. Different enemies and actions grant varying amounts of this momentum, right? So whether you get a standard enemy, whether you get headshots, all of that. The higher up you fill that momentum bar, you unlock more and more bonuses for your character. This includes stuff like weapon damage, rate of fire, movement speed. That bar will then decay over time, both in and out of combat at different rates, but it can be slowed by performing different actions, such as sprinting or using a pulse. So just like with Point Blank this current season of the game, there's going to be a lot of details to this that we need to learn, intricacies that we will figure out over time. But overall, this premise sounds very sick and combat focused. I'm pretty excited for it. There's another, condition to this though, and that is that enemies can become blacklisted. And if you successfully eliminate blacklisted enemies, you gain substantial momentum increases. So this is not a hostile modifier. It's just that some enemies will have that condition to them, and you will get that bonus if you kill them. However, if you get shot by them, it will drain your momentum. So you need to be very careful when they're out on the field. All right, talking about the active modifiers, there are three that we're going to have: Overdrive, Vendetta, and Tactical Supremacy. Overdrive instantly maxes out that momentum bar, so you get all of the bonuses, but once it wears off, you gain momentum at a 50% decline, or 50% slower for 30 seconds. You then have Vendetta, which will mark several enemies. You kill those enemies using your primary, secondary skill, or pistol, and it grants stacking tank bonuses. Not 100% sure what tank bonuses means. I guess we'll see more when the PTS goes live, but failure to eliminate them imposes armor and health reduction penalties. And then Tactical Supremacy is that it doubles all of your minor modifiers for a limited time, but you do not gain momentum during the effect. Speaking of, here are the minor or passive modifiers. Again, there are all new ones this season. They say a lot of them deal with skills. It's not just weapon focused ones this time, but it seems like there's a pretty good variety. So Explosive Amp, your Seeker Mine deals 100% more damage against blacklisted enemies. Critical Recovery, performing critical hits restores 0.15% of your maximum armor. This is pretty cool. I'm liking the crit and pulse focus this season for sure. Critical Momentum, crit hits have a 50% higher chance to grant 1% momentum. Momentum Surge, kills with skills double the momentum gain. Obviously, a ton of them here. Most deal with skills, pulse, striker drone, all that stuff. Again, if you want to fully read these, I encourage you to check out the patch notes link down in the description, but these seem pretty cool. Up to 4 enemies affected by the pulse have a 50% chance to receive a burn status effect. So as with last season, they're going to do a lot of unique things with these modifiers that should be pretty fun in gameplay. Here's a pretty big change though, because the big reason that a lot of people did not like using the modifier system this current season of the game is because of how the hostile modifiers were integrated into the experience. They're changing things a bit in the fact that next season there will only be a singular hostile hostile modifier called Frenzy, and they will be properly implementing the gameplay flow where this actually gets more powerful the further you get into the season, right? So when we started Year 6 Season 2, the enemies had all 4 of theirs unlocked, whereas we had none, and that didn't feel too great in gameplay. Next season, Frenzy is going to start out as a base version of itself, but then the higher that you go through the seasonal journey, because that is now how you unlock all of the modifiers, this will basically level up and gain in power with you so that it feels like a more natural progression through the season. And what Frenzy will do is that enemies will gain rate of fire, movement speed, and armor and health regen, and again, that will get more powerful the higher up you go in your seasonal journey. So that should be pretty cool. Again, hostile modifiers are no longer going to like directly hurt you in that sense, like Requital did or like Master of None did this season. Instead, it's just going to make select enemies that have this buff more powerful. But again, given all of the bonuses that we're getting with all of this, that shouldn't be too much of a problem. All right, moving on to gear, weapons, and talents. We have the new exotic weapon, which is called the Oxpecker. Again, we saw the look for this on the PTS stream recap. Feel free to check that out. It is an MP7. It looks pretty wild when it's shooting. It has like red flame and a rotating barrel. Pretty crazy. The talent is called Symbiosis. While having a shield deployed, lose shield health at a rate of 10% per second. However, your shield receives repairs of 25% of the damage dealt by this weapon. So an interesting talent for sure, not like the most universal one. I'm sure a lot of people would have preferred like a fully damage-oriented talent. However, I do think this will have some viability in endgame content because, you know, shields haven't been widely used since they implemented that disorient break feature back in, what was that, Season 9? But in theory, if you pair this with the right stuff, like the new Provocator exotic chest that we're getting from Master Difficulty this season, you could become pretty hard to kill and your shield could become almost invulnerable depending on how many damage stacks you're able to get if you were doing this with Striker, for example, to make your shield, like I said, almost unkillable. So it'll be interesting to try this out if nothing else, but that's what we're getting there. It comes with a 15% headshot damage, 50 optimal range, 15 crit chance mods. Then we get to the exotic gear. This is what I'm the most excited for, the Exodus exotic gloves. The talent is called Smokescreen. It has 2 functionalities, one in PvE and one in PvP. In PvE, on armor break, you drop a smoke bomb at your feet, concealing you from enemies for 3 seconds. It then has a 40-second cooldown. In PvP, where I'm even more excited for this thing, on armor break drops a smoke bomb, again, same thing there, but you receive 100% pulse resistance, and it hides your nameplate for 2 seconds, cooldown of 40 seconds. So look, these things are not going to be like the most universally used item ever, but it's really cool to see an exotic item add like an all-new ability to the game. We've never had any kind of a smoke bomb functionality, and I love the fact that they did fully integrate it into PvP by giving it its own, usage in there. Given I'm a very run and gun player myself, I'm excited for these. I think they're going to be pretty fun in a lot of different builds, so there you go. And then lastly, we get the Birdie's Quick Fix Pack, which is a new exotic backpack. The talent is called Combat Medic. You inherently get 50% revive speed and negative 50% weakened debuff time, which I think just means like status effect immunity, right? Never mind. Now that I'm thinking about it, that is how long you have that weakened debuff so that you don't like fully die if you were to get knocked again. So that's what that is. It's all about revives. The second part of the talent is that you get 50% damage resistance to both yourself and the person you're reviving for 5 seconds after a successful revive. Additionally, successful revives provide 1 skill tier for 30 seconds, and if you get revives at skill tier 6, you then get overcharged for 15 seconds. I said this in the stream recap, this will definitely be a bit more of a niche item, but especially paired with some of the new gear that we're getting, like the gear set that we're going to talk about momentarily, I could see this being pretty good in legendary content and other stuff too. I'm excited to try it out. Alright, then we have the new brand set, which is called the Shiny Monkey gear, which I still think is a funny title. The first piece gives you 15% skill duration, 2-piece 5% skill efficiency, 3-piece 52% repair skills. The 2 named versions are then going to be an Axle backpack, which gives you perfect energize, having the cooldown of that to 30 seconds instead of a minute. And then Grease are going to be new knee pads, which come with the perfected attribute of 16% status effects. That'll be fun for PvP for sure. Then we've got the Refractor gear set, Refactor rather, which is not what it said on the stream. That was reorganized, but it's going to be re-something here. And this one, again, I don't think it's going to be meta, but I'm curious to see how people can use it. So the 2 pieces, 15% status effects, the 3 pieces, 25% skill damage, and the 4 piece then comes with the talent of Return Descender. So you receive repairs of 10% of the damage dealt by your skills, right? So you're almost life-stealing enemies with your skills. However, your allies will also receive 20% of the damage dealt by your skills, so it's going to heal your allies even more than yourself. And I think this could be a really interesting like skill healer hybrid kind of role and playstyle. I think there's a lot of cases in this game where healers don't want to just heal, they want to also be able to do something in combat. And so I think this could definitely be a pretty interesting middle ground for that type of playstyle. But we then have the chest and backpack amplification talents. On the chest, it's going to be called Increased Interest, that being that the repairs you receive for yourself go up to 25%, whereas for allies it's going to be 35%. I think that'll be really good to use. On the backpack, it's then called Over-Engineered. While at full armor, repairs from Return to Sender will provide bonus armor up to 40% of your total armor, but this only applies to yourself. It does not apply to allies. So again, I don't think this is going to be like the most meta gear set ever, but I am very curious because it seems to be unlocking a kind of new playstyle that we don't really have access to in a lot of other good ways. Alright, moving on to the new named weapons and talent. The talent is called Pressure Point, amplifies weapon damage by 10% to enemies under a status effect. So this is basically just a universal version of, Sadist or Ignited, one of those status specific talents. It's then going to come with a perfected version on both an FAL AR as well as a RPK LMG, and the perfected version just increases that damage amount to 15%. Alright, we then get to reworks and updates. They're doing another minor balancing pass. This is not nearly as large as I think some of us maybe thought it was going to be, because if you look down the list, we have a bunch of exotics here as well as tables for all of the weapon classes in the game. The main change is that reload speed has been buffed for everything, right? So I don't think there's any decreases here. Every exotic that you see on this list, and you can see every AR, every SMG, every LMG, every rifle, and every pistol all have their reload speeds increased. And I think this is in response to what they did with Year 6 Season 2. They nerfed a lot of the reload speeds, and people were saying that felt a bit too slow. So across the board, all of the reload speeds are going up. However, we do have a few select changes beyond that. For one, and they announced this in the stream, for ARs, the Lexington is getting a slight nerf. Its damage at level 40 is going from 49,253, and that's what it is in the current game, to 48,690. Notably, this is still going to be well above the Police M4, which is at 46,908, which is basically what the Lexington is modeled off of, is the Police M4 model. And on stream, the dev said this should be around a 1.1% nerf, so it is going down by a slight bit, but it should still be very strong. So that's good to take note of. But then we also have some very notable rifle buffs. If we go to the rifle tab here, you can see 3 of them have gotten pretty hefty increases. So first we have the UIC, which is going from 144,000 to 164,000, so that's a big increase. Again, that's alongside its reload buff. The lightweight M4 is going from 103,000 to 107, and then the MK47 is going from 121 to 124. So these two are a bit more minor. I'm definitely interested to see if the USC becomes pretty good to use given this 20,000 base damage buff. But yeah, aside from those 3 buffs and the slight Lexington nerf, everything else is just getting a reload speed increase. That is the totality of the balancing that is happening this season. Wrapping up then, we get down to the quality of life changes for modifiers. They have been removed from the priority objectives, right? You no longer farm your passive ones there. Now everything is going to be available on the seasonal journey. A nice little feature, you can now toggle and activate your active modifiers without aiming down sights. That was a limitation and restriction that we had in this current season, so that's good to see changed. And apparently that will come with clearer visibility of active modifier durations and cooldown. Maybe it's on that gauge, the what do they call it, the momentum gauge. I couldn't quite tell from the stream. I'd have to go back and look, but that should be pretty solid. All right, talking about progression objectives in the season pass, I think people will be pretty happy by these changes here. There's now going to be an incentive for using seasonal modifiers. You will get an increase to your season pass XP gain for having them equipped and activated. They're also increasing the ways to get season pass XP again, as is different from this current season where they vastly limited the sources compared to seasons 1.0. You will now be awarded season pass XP for doing select in-game activities, including main missions, countdown, conflict, descent, summit. I'm not sure what LWAs is. I think this might be like open world activities, light world activities. I don't know, because they did show that in the stream, and DZ landmark activities. So this is great. Give people more ways to do it. You now get a buff if you use the seasonal modifier. So this should be a pretty good change overall. They did note, however, that rewards are granted upon completing those objectives, not for individual eliminations. Again, they shouted this out in the stream, but they have removed stuff like Warhound convoys, elite resources, and elite territories from things you can get in priority objectives. They're also adding a new thing where every 24 hours your refill bar now goes automatically up to 3. So you can do a lot more priority objectives, at least ones that you want to do, because every day that will be refreshing. So that's a very nice change. All right, and that is mostly it. They talk about then on the PTS, they have kind of streamlined how you acquire the new stuff to test out. The main vendor right inside the front door of the base is now going to have these caches. That's great because it's been a little bit convoluted, I think, for the past few updates. And then they just have a last few known issues here, which again, feel free to check out using the link in the description. So that is it, folks. That is the entirety of the patch notes for Year 6 Season 3, the PTS at least. A little bit easier to wrap our heads around compared to Year 6 Season 2 when there was like tons of exotic reworks and a bunch of stuff there too. But some things I'm definitely excited about. I think Rogue Momentum sounds very fun. I'm definitely looking forward to playing around with the Exodus smokescreen gloves. This is going to be sick. But I now hand the mic off over to you all. What are your thoughts on everything that they lay out in these patch notes? Are you looking forward to any of the new gear, talents, anything there, the new modifier set? What do you think about them changing stuff like hostile modifiers or the way that Season Pass XP is distributed? Lots of things. Would love to hear your thoughts down below. Once again, I will be going live with this tomorrow at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern right here on the channel if you want to tune back in. And stay tuned over the weekend for plenty of videos going over all the new stuff. That's going to do it for me today, though, everybody. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you soon. Until then, RogueGold out.